Welcome to Joy, Love, and Abundance, designed to lift up and explore the people, organizations, and experiences that create a more joyful, loving, and abundant world. Join hosts Rodney-Eric-Lopez, Patrice-Tanaka, and Cyrus-Webb as they share stories and insights that will inform and inspire you. Enjoy today's broadcast.
And welcome back, everyone, to Joy, Love, and Abundance, both for our radio audience and those tuning in via the podcast. I'm Cyrus-Webb, excited to be joined by my friends Patrice-Tanaka and Rodney-Eric-Lopez. We're here today, of course, to be able to hopefully to inspire you, but also to remind you to be able to find some joy, love, and abundance in your lives. Always a pleasure being with you all each week. Another productive week, a lot going on in the world, but a lot of people are talking about love this time, which is perfect for us guys, right? Because that's a part of our name here at Joy, Love, and Abundance. Patrice, one of the things that you had mentioned when we were kind of talking before the show began is something that you have done outside of just, a lot of times people are talking about Valentine's as a day. Talk to us about, if you don't mind, what you were sharing about what you all did to kind of expand on that a bit.
Yeah, thank you, Cyrus. Yes, many years ago, we started at my agency something called Acts of Love and Kindness to celebrate Valentine's. And our idea was to expand the idea of Valentine's being only about romantic love, to expand it to be more about brotherly love and love of mankind. And so Acts of Love and Kindness was our attempt to encourage people to commit acts of love and kindness. And we didn't care how our employees interpreted this, whether they baked cookies for their child's school or just visited a sick friend or actually did a day of volunteering, because we actually closed the office and gave our employees the day off to commit acts of love and kindness. So whenever Valentine's rolls around, I think fondly of acts of love and kindness. And I actually see our podcast, Joy, Love, and Abundance, as an act of love and kindness. So it's very much in keeping with this Valentine's season. So happy Valentine's.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, for you, I mean, there's so much I know that you do that is really built on love. I mean, love is definitely something that you kind of think about daily. This time of year, though, I mean, how do you kind of, think about not only, of course, the topic of love, but also us being able to show love?
That's a great question, Cyrus. I'm going to build on what Patrice just talked about. I'm thinking back in this conversation to my days as a young man, in religious education and in Sunday school, and learning about biblical definitions of love, right? And one of the things that I remember learning is that in Greek, which I guess part of the New Testament was written in, they mentioned that in Greek there's multiple names for love, multiple words for love, which is actually it's kind of a disadvantage of the English language, is that we've only got this one word, love, and it's so loaded that sometimes we don't know how to use it and how to deploy it. And I remember learning that at least in ancient Greek there were at least four different words for love. And there was eros, which is the romantic love that we're all very familiar with, but that then there is this idea of philia, which is the brotherly love that Patrice was talking about, right, which is where we get the city of Philadelphia from, right, the city of brotherly love. And then there is storge, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but that refers to the love of family, sort of a deeper familial love. And then there's this very high, and what people consider kind of the best kind of love, or the most significant kind of love, which is agape, this idea of love based on principle, the kind of love that you can show to anyone based on principle. It's a love based on action, a love based on service. And so when I think about a season of love, whether we're talking about Valentine's or we're talking about joy, love, and abundance on a daily basis, I like to think about love being expressed in these different ways, not just the love I show for my romantic partner, but how am I showing love as a brother? How am I showing love as a friend? But most importantly, how am I showing love as a citizen? What am I doing in the world that's the love of the citizen? That's agape-based love that's based in principle. I love thinking about that because it doesn't limit the word love to just the domain of the romantic. Love can also be public. You could have public love, and I think that's a beautiful concept.
I love that, Rodney. Yeah, and I love what Patrice mentioned, too. For me, Patrice, one of the things that we were talking about via email was a recent conversation that I had with my mother. My very first, in the 17 years of my hosting the radio show Conversations Live, I've been asking my mom to be a guest on the show. She always says, I don't have anything to talk about. I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm not. But she finally, as I was gearing up for my milestone this week of reaching my 10,000th guest, agreed to sit down for an interview. And the radio audience in Mississippi is hearing that this week. And what I thought was so interesting is, Rodney, as you were talking, and even as you were talking, Patrice, my family will tell you I am, and this always surprises people who've gotten to know me professionally, I'm not probably considered the most lovable person in my family.
Stop it, Cyrus. That can't be true. Come on, Cyrus.
I know. Well, and it comes through in a sense, as my mom and I were sitting down, I was a very weird child. I was not a child who liked to play with people. I liked to be by myself, and I would get irritated, seriously irritated, when she'd have me go out and play with my cousins, because I was like, I want to read my book.
You're like an old man when you were a kid.
I was, Patrice. It was horrible. And look, my punishment when I would do something, which is very, as my mom said in that conversation, I didn't get in trouble much. But my punishment, she would make me go outside. Most kids, you have to go to your room. I would stay in my room, and I would be so upset. But I bring that up in this topic of love because I have learned that love is not just about myself. It really is about how you make people feel. And, I'm not a big I love you person. Even when I was in relationships, I wasn't. Even with my own mom, she'll tell you saying I love you is not something I do on a regular basis. It's just not something that's natural to me. But what I have learned is how I show love. That's what the way I grew up with my grandmother is, that you show love. You don't have to say it. The way you treat people, the way that you listen to someone, the way that you're there. So that was if I did those things, to me, I didn't need to tell you I love you because you knew I loved you by my actions. So that's why when you were talking, Rodney, I thought about that with myself personally, that I'm a show person. I'm not a person that has to be told. I don't need to hear it myself, and I've learned some people need to hear it, and I've tried to be more aware of that. But it's interesting that for myself, it's all about, if I invite you to my house and I cook for you, I love you. Because that is, for one, I don't invite people to my house. and two, if I'm cooking, yes, I love you. So, I think this is an interesting topic because I know there's a lot of people I meet like myself who are very introverted extroverts, I think, in some respects, that we can be with the people and love people, but not have to have that type of connection. So I think that the topic of love is so complex. That's why I love how you broke that down, Rodney, with that, because there are different layers to it, right? I think we kind of make it such a broad thing, like you said, with our limitations with the English language. And I'm sure our audience out there feels the same way. Love it's complicated, right?
It's complicated, and I hope that it may be in a... Go ahead, Patrice, go ahead.
That's why I love the word aloha. I'm from Hawaii, and I sign off most of my emails and, text with aloha because it's my secretive way of saying to the other person, I love you, without using the L word, because some people might think it's freighted with too much. too much emotion, too much love. But that is actually how I feel about most of the people that I engage with. So I think it's highly appropriate to say aloha. Sometimes I say love and aloha, if I think the other person can handle it. But anyway, sorry, Rodney, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I think, and I would love to maybe explore this further in another show, but this idea also of love languages. Gary Chapman has written a very successful book and series of books about the 5 love languages, and that love is expressed, Cyrus, as you mentioned, words of affirmation, right? This idea of I love you, saying it may be one expression. And I think if we limit expressions of love to just words, it's not going to land for everybody, and that there are other ways to express love through acts of service and through physical touch and through gifts. And so I think we're onto something here, and really many people before us were onto this. But I think that it might be worth exploring in another podcast to really think through and explore the different ways that people express love and examples of that.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that's great.
I love that. Yeah. Can I ask you a question, Cyrus? I was going to ask you earlier when you talked about that you don't often say I love you, but how do you feel if someone who loves you says I love you? How do you feel about that?
Well, that's a great question, Patrice. And it's so funny. Doing this show, I'm probably more revealing of myself personally than even my radio audience that's followed me for 17 years. Because again, no one ever knows what I think about anything, for conversations live. But it doesn't. I mean, it does not. It doesn't bother me. And I will say it back. Like my mom, believe it or not, my mom ends every phone conversation saying "I love you."
Oh, I love her.
That's how she is. And I will say, okay, or I'll just say bye, or I'll just hang up.
Oh my God!
Sorry, that's hilarious.
Hey, I'm just being honest. But I mean, it doesn't bother me when people say it. I just don't automatically feel compelled to say it back. It doesn't mean I don't love them. It just I don't feel like, okay, this person said it, so am I supposed to say it? I don't give it a lot of thought. I need
everybody in our listening audience to send Cyrus an email saying, Cyrus, I love you. Let's just blow up Cyrus's email inbox with expressions of love. I think that's totally awesome.
But Rodney, I think you're onto something. For our audience, I would love to know about them, how they show love, how they express love. Is it with words or is it with actions? And I think that's part of that's been the blessing of my life, is that I have tried to make it an action word for myself and not just one of these things you just kind of throw out. Patrice, that's why I love what you said about aloha, because as you said, it can be whatever you need it to be. And that's your way of saying, even though the person may not get that, that's your way of saying, I love you. And I love that. I think that is a great thing. I want to say for those who are just tuning in on the radio side as well as through our podcast, you are listening to Joy, Love, and Abundance. As you can tell, we're talking about love here. I'm joined by patrice-tanaka and Rodney-Eric-Lopez. We're talking to them not only, of course, about this time of year, but also about love, what it means for them, and also expressing it. And again, we'd love to know your thoughts as to how you go about being able to do that for yourself. It's a complex thing. I mean, love is for myself, I can speak for myself. It's complex because I'm not as much, again, as an expressive person when it comes to it, but I definitely feel like I show it. And that to me is, the big thing, for myself. Patrice, we've come to the time where we like to be able to share things that kind of have brought us some joy, love, and abundance that we want to be able to share with others. You had a great one that was a follow-up for something you've shared before. Why don't you tell us about it?
I wonder what it was. I get so many wonderful and loving things have happened this week. And I guess something that to me captures the whole idea of joy, love, and abundance is one of the really great things that happened was that my Girl Scout Council and our Troop 6000 for girls living in homeless shelters in New York City achieved this humongous goal of selling 1 million boxes of Girl Scout cookies. I mean, isn't that huge? We're going to be able to have, work with so many more girls in New York City homeless shelters because of this amazing milestone achievement. I mean, I think last year Troop 6000 sold 40,000 boxes. So this year to sell 1 million boxes is just off the charts. Of course, it didn't hurt that Good Morning America did a feature on Troop 6000 on Monday, and that it elicited an outpouring of support for this program. So this is one of the things, and I've been reporting on social media how we've kind of inched up from Monday to this goal of 1 million, which we achieved yesterday, and now we said we're not stopping there because the next big goal. Let's see if we can achieve 2 million. Anyway, it's just very exciting. All part of joy, love, and abundance.
Right. That is awesome, Patrice. And when you emailed about that, I thought, wow, that is huge. I mean, I did buy 7 boxes myself this.
Thank you.
But see, Patrice, that was my way of showing love. I bought 7 boxes.
And even Rodney's wife, Noni, bought boxes of cookies, and she even said, "But I have to hide them from Rodney, otherwise he'll eat them all."
And I will listen. If a box of Girl Scout cookies is anywhere near me, it's not for a very long time.
I get it.
I love this stuff.
Well, Rodney, I think that's a great connection to something that you were really impressed about with Food for Soul. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah.
Oh man, this was a story I fell in love with. I read about it in the winter. I think it was the winter issue, recent issue of the Stanford Social Innovation Review. We talk about joy, love, and abundance, and I think that there isn't a more pure expression of joy, love, or abundant living than around a dinner table or around the meal table. I mean, food is probably the most basic expression of love, right? Especially when food is prepared with love, right? So, so there is this a wonderful organization, and I have to say, this would not have come on my radar if I hadn't just, saw it in this magazine. But it's a European-based nonprofit out of Italy, and it was started by this amazing chef. He's a world-famous chef, Italian chef named Massimo Bottura, and his partner. They are UN Goodwill ambassadors, particularly around food waste and reducing food waste in the world. And they started this nonprofit in Italy, which then expanded to other places in Europe, and it's called Food for Soul. And the basic premise is they want to reimagine the food pantry or the food kitchen or the soup kitchen. They want to reimagine these community kitchens as gatherings for people who need to eat, but a more dignified place for community engagement and involvement. And so they're using the term refettorio. Now, many Italian speakers in our listenership, I probably messed up the pronunciation, but refettorio in Latin means to remake or to restore. And so what Food for Soul is doing is going into places that are underutilized. Maybe it's churches or warehouses or places in a community that are underutilized, and transforming them as meeting spaces where people in the community can get like Michelin level meals. And they're hiring world-class chefs. They're using surplus food from first-class restaurants in the area. But what's more important is that they're partnering with local nonprofits to use them as training centers so that young people in the community or formerly incarcerated people or other folks in the community can actually get training in food prep, food service, and hospitality. In addition, they're inviting artists, musicians, design and architecture people to turn these refectorios into beautiful community kitchens. And I thought, wow, how cool they're doing that in Europe. But what I just found out is that they're opening 2 locations in New York and in San Francisco, one in Harlem and one in the Bay Area in San Francisco, working with organizations like Youth Action Youth Build and the Hot Bread Kitchen in Harlem and Farming Hope in San Francisco. And so I just think this is a beautiful initiative that's looking holistically at not just providing food and meals to people who need them, but doing so with real dignity and holistic design and art and music, and also finding ways to find homes for these nonprofits to also create training for young people. So I think it's really a creative and fascinating way to sort of join these efforts. And they've just started these initiatives in New York and in San Francisco in November to coincide with the Thanksgiving holiday just this past fall. So I'm really interested in how those things expand, especially as we come on the other side of the pandemic, hopefully in the months to come.
Wow.
I love it.
Rodney, I was just going to say, I think talking about expressing love, I mean, what a way to do it, again, using food, right? I mean, I think and to being able to see how people rally around it, I mean, it really does show, I mean, to me, love in action. I mean, it's powerful.
Absolutely. Because really, you know, we all say, when a meal is made with love, you can tell. And so, when we have these world-class chefs and artisans coming together and transforming the idea of sort of a drab soup kitchen that we're used to seeing in the media, and those places are really important places. But what if those places were also inspirational for everybody who walked in them? I think that can send a really powerful message.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a great thing. The thing that I wanted to share this week, which I think is a loving thing, that I had a great guest on the radio show recently, Dr. Seema Yasmin, and she has written a new book called Viral BS, and it's medical myths and why we fall for them. And I thought at a time where the truth is under attack, I thought this was such a fascinating conversation to have, because she literally went through and she, addressed some of the different myths that were out there, medical myths that were out there about everything from marijuana to, of course, vaccines. And, is it true that, the more people commit suicide around the holiday season? And, these things that we hear a lot of times that we just accept. And she actually went and did the research about it. And what I thought was so loving about this book was it wasn't saying these people are crazy for believing that you're supposed to eat your child's placenta after you give birth. But she broke down the actual scientific evidence of, hey, you do realize the placenta could carry bacteria. You could actually, get sick or die from it, and also pass that on to your child. So I thought this was such a fascinating thing at a time when we're having conversations about the truth and the truth mattering. I think this is one of those things that is so important, and so I was really excited about it. Again, her name is Dr. Seema Yasmin. The book is Viral BS, Medical Myths and Why We Fall for Them. And it also, the other interesting thing, guys, that she talks about is that, and I think this is true just in life, when we have a certain bias about something or beliefs about something, when we hear something that reinforces it, we tend to believe it. We tend to say, okay, well, that must be right then because this person says it, instead of actually realizing, okay, the harm that could come from spreading something that is not true. I just thought that was an interesting thing, and I think very loving of her to do that.
Yeah, I think what you were talking about, I think that's called confirmation bias, right? When you
right.
you already believe something and you see something that just confirms kind of what you believe. So I think it's wonderful for this doctor to really, you know, the only way you can have dialogue is if you can understand, right, what someone else is thinking. And I think, Cyrus, what you said a moment ago is she's not out here trying to berate people or make people feel wrong for their views. I think she's trying to meet people where they're at, and then engage in scientific exploration of what a factual solution should be.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing, and I think, again, it goes to something for our audience out there. I think the connection between truth and love is so important to what we try to do on this program when it comes to joy, love, and abundance, because you can't have those three, I don't think, without truth. And I think I think is a great tie-in just to this whole topic. Guys, another great show. I always look forward to these weekly conversations with us. I mean, and time always seems to fly by so fast with us. But we, again, want to hear from your audience, whether you're tuning in on the radio side or online. You know, a lot of great information was shared here by Rodney, Patrice, and I try to add a little bit of value. You guys know now, if I cook for you, I love you. So there, you learned that from me this week.
We got to get to Nashville.
Yeah, but we definitely want to hear from you. How do you express love? Is it more through words or through actions? And would love to be able to know more about that. And, you know, Patrice and Rodney, I have to say, as we are coming up on our first month of this broadcast, it has truly been a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you all each week. And I definitely look forward to next week's program.
Oh, thank you. And Cyrus, I have to say that happy anniversary, and I love you.
Oh, I love you too,
Cyrus.
Patrice.
Love you too, Cyrus.
I love you too, man. But you know what? I think, you know, this is one of those things. I mean, you guys, family, Rodney, since the first time I met you in New York now almost 3 years ago. I mean, because Patrice has spoken so highly of you, you felt like family from the very beginning. So, yeah. So I mean, you know, you just kind of are part of the clique.
That's right. We love Rodney.
And we love you, our audience, as well. So from Patrice, Rodney, and myself, we are wishing you all another great week of joy, love, and abundance. Hope you all are able to not only to feel it, but also to share it with others. And until next week, you all make it a great one. Take care.